Hey guys, Sean here, Shanto, Shinobi. Um, I'm going to show you today my parallel compression, my reverb sends, and then I'll start to lay down a kick, a snare, and probably a bass line as well to show you how I use the sends with all of those. So um, we've got our project here. It's the same one I've been working on. We've got some sends over here that are empty. They are being returned back to my return track here, and that's from video 1. That's all going into my mix bus here. You can see in my last video what I put on my mix bus and why. And then the mix bus is being sent into the master. So the mix and the master were both described in the last video. So one of the things that's really important in the style of music that I make is a technique called parallel compression. And what you do is you send your kick and in smaller amounts your snare and bass, pretty much the instruments that are mono. At least I always use those in mono in my tracks, and they're the only ones. I send those all over to a parallel bus, and I put a compressor on that, as well as a few other effects. And this technique, I believe, is called NYC compression, and I'm not sure why. It's likely that it originated there. And I can't even say that my version of it is 100% true to the origin, but it works for me, and I like it. And I developed it after reading numerous posts on internet forums or tutorials about NYC compression. So I have a preset already saved. So this is just a plugin chain that I've saved ahead of time, and I pretty much just drag and drop this into all my tracks. You can see here I have another version of it from another track. And what's in it is an Ableton stock compressor, and I'm going to connect that to my sidechain trigger. I'll actually just go back and rename that just so it's obvious to everybody watching whenever I select that, that is the trigger. So what that does is that's going to make this compression pump with the Midi trigger here, and it's a 4 to the floor trigger, so just on every beat it signals the compressor. And I have a low filter on there, low pass filter, and I'm gonna actually change that frequency to 131. I've been using this technique lately where I pitch the frequencies according to the key of the track, and so 131 would be C in that frequency range. I believe it's actually 130.86. I find it really helps glue the tracks together, the low end together. It gives a really harmonious air to it. Kind of helps bring out a little bit of space. And then I'm going to set a high ratio, quick attack, fairly short release. I'm also going to dial the sidechain input gain down to -10 so that I have a lower threshold, more sensitive threshold for that sound. So cut the knee all the way down to 0 so it's super sharp. You don't need any look ahead. You want it very natural sounding. And then you can actually turn up the output all the way to 10 decibels so that effect really comes through strongly. I like to keep the dry wet signal all the way wet and leave it on peak. Next up, you're going to put a smiley face EQ in here, and I use the high pass filter on the low end with a super sharp Q, so that there's about 10 decibels of gain at 100 hertz. And then the low pass filter, and both these are very, actually no, they're not steep curves. They're actually just the natural curve in the Ableton stock EQ8. So a low pass filter, and then again pretty high Q. So you've got a sharp cut there, peaking at about 10 decibels of gain at 10 kilohertz. And then in the middle here, I do cut at 100 hertz, about 6 decibels, with a very low Q, so that it's a very wide open curve there. And that just gives this nice round EQ that really accents the points of 100 hertz and 10 kilohertz. And then throw a limiter on there, and that's just, for safekeeping. And a shorter release. I don't like to have a long release on that. This is really, you're really just trying to affect that first impact, and you don't want it muddying the sound too much after, so you can dial back the release probably even further. 180 is probably good for right now. And so that's going to be my sidechain compression. I'm going to send my kick to that. I'm going to send my bass to that, and I'm going to send my snare to that. But I'm not going to do it from these instrument groups, these higher level groups, because not every track within that is going to be sent here. And I'll go over that in just a second. First, I'm going to move on to my reverb. It's going to be real quick. I'm just going to throw on one reverb rack. And this is going to be reverb for my snare or clap. So I use Altiverb, which is from AudioEase, and it's an impulse response reverb. It's quite pricey, but it has a lot of applications beyond music. It can be used for film as well. And impulse response reverbs are pretty fascinating. What they do is they set up a bunch of microphones in a room, or measure the output of a device, and either in the room or sending to that device is a frequency pulse from low up to high. So a very slow pulse, and it just sound like, and they measure that, and they measure the reverb that's coming from either the room or from the device. Then from that, they're able to make an impulse response, and an IR. And then this VST basically measures that impulse response and can apply that to other sounds. So you can sound like you are playing in a great concert hall, or you could sound like you're playing in one of the major stadiums in the world. Or you could sound like you're using one of the classic pieces of hardware. So really incredible and really useful, really good sounding. So this is what I like to use. One of my sort of aims in this whole thing with music is to learn what people have been using. I think that's where we get our sounds from. That's what we grew up with. We want to emulate those sounds, and that's why I love Roland Cloud. I love that Korg is putting like the ARP and some of their other hardware as VSTs, and I lean more towards that instead of things that are just the modern uh, you kind of VST that is a completely new design. I like to kind of draw inspiration from the old hardware and those sounds. So this is really great for that. I can learn about the hardware while also applying it and learning about sound itself in general. Um, some of this metering stuff is really fun, and it's really deep too. Gate, positioner. You can even add your own impulse responses. Yeah, super cool piece of technology here. So for my snare, I'm going to try a plate reverb. I believe these are plates. Yep, yeah, EMT is a big plate reverb. So that's actually what a plate reverb looks like. It is actually a huge plate. Most plate reverbs that are used today are now just digital representations of this concept. Lexicon was one of the pioneers of that. You've got the L224 and the L480 here, which have awesome plate reverbs. Oh, no, it doesn't have a plate reverb. The L224. Oh, yeah, it does. Yeah, there they are. Right there. Yeah, as you can see, yes, I have hearted one of those already. Yeah, Lexicon has beautiful plate reverb. But yeah, let's try one of these let's try this. This looks fun, this echo plate. Okay, so you'll dial in some pre-delay, usually above 15 milliseconds, and some attack. I usually kind of go around 0.024. I'll leave the damping down, or right in the middle at noon. Same with the levels. You can just try to keep everything stock there. Okay, cool. So now I'll show you how that New York City compression works with the kick, and then I'll show you how reverb works with a snare. So for the kick, I'm going to start with a Roland Cloud VST. And I'm just going to go with the 909. I think it's the most full sounding kick that I have here. I also really like to use my drum machine hardware, which is an MFB Tansbar, the original one, not the Tansbar 2. So here, I'm going to go and select the A pattern. I'm going to clear the A pattern, and I'm just going to dial in a 4 to the floor. I'm going to put an accent on the 2 and the 4. Turn up that accent just a little bit. Let's see how that sounds. One thing I will point out before I hit play is that it's recommended, or I recommend, just bringing your instruments down to -12 to start. And it can really be helpful when mixing later, when trying to make sure you have enough headroom. It's better to have to raise your levels than to have to reduce your levels. It's a lot easier, I should say. Okay, so pretty good. Let's turn down the decay, turn down the attack. It's a little slow for me. Strange that it started at 111. Usually Ableton starts at 120. I've never seen that. Maybe I turned it down earlier. I'm going to detune it just a little bit. Okay, pretty good. Okay, like it. So just barely noticeable. I really like things to not stand out too much, but there's just a little bit of an accent there. I feel like the chopping off the decay there does a good job of opening up the sound for other sounds. So now that I have a kick sound that I like, let's send it to that sidechain parallel compression. That sounds dope. Okay, it's a little hot here, so I kind of want this, when they're hitting together, to be no more than 10 decibels, so my kick's a little loud. You know, I should actually look over here, because that's not correct, because that has the master. So where I want to actually look is right here. And it's a little soft, so anywhere from 12.4 to 10, negative 10 is where I want my kick to be hitting. So that's good. That's where I like it. The side chain is actually a little loud though. The side chain is coming in at negative 16, where the kick is only at negative 22. So let's bring that side chain back down. You can hear that opens at the low end. It's not a squash now on just those accented frequencies. But if I go too far lower, I kind of lose the effect. So I kind of liked it right about there. Okay, so that is sidechain compression right there. So it's really not that crazy, but it does a lot to bring out those higher ends, the frequencies that you really want to accent. Like that's not very. I wouldn't want to build a track around that. That though, you can do it. Okay, so just to give us something nice to listen to while we're doing this, I'm just going to add in a hi-hat with just on the offbeat, just so it sounds fun. So I'm going to go to the 707. The 707 has some great sounds in it, and you can modify the sounds a lot. So this might be my favorite Roland drum machine. I think if I were to buy the hardware, I'd probably want to look at a 707. I also feel like a kind of person who doesn't want to just have the same thing everybody else has, especially if they're ridiculously expensive. Yeah, so if you really like me, maybe you send me a 707. I would love that. Cool. So here we go. I'm gonna show you a little simple classic Roland technique. A lot of other drum machines do this now. Choked hi-hat kind of gives the sound the effect of like if it was a real drummer, you know, using the choke pedal to mute the sound. So yeah, let's bring that down to negative 12 again. So that way I can dial it up. So here if I change the decay of the close, you can see the whole sound gets a little lower, but then if I change the decay of the open, that didn't do anything. Okay, so you can hear the close decay changes the open as well. Yeah, okay. Let's change the tune there a bit. So that gives us something interesting to listen to while we're doing some other stuff. So next up I said snare. Let's turn this off real quick, because when I throw these on there's always a pattern playing, so that's why I do this stop start thing. For snare, what do I like? Let's try the 606 for the snare. And this is just going to be a real simple pattern. So I'm going to do just a snare on the 2 and the 4. And I might do one more that's syncopated, but I want to listen to it first. So let's pull down that level real quick and hit play. .606 is great too. It gives you a little bit of ability to modify the sound, just enough, more than the 808. I like that, but I don't want it hitting every single time, so let me do this. Make a little pattern. Okay, let's bring it back to the beginning. I'll select A through D. And then on that D one, I think was where I wanted that hit. So let's see what that sounds like. It was on the C one. No. There we go. B. Cool. Okay. And I'm going to send this as well to the parallel compression. Not fully. I'm also going to send this over to the reverb. Perfect. Let's throw a clap on here. Let's see what the 606 clap sounds like. It's probably it does not have a clap. So then let's bring an 808 in here. So yeah, changed the reverb here from the TR606 to that snare clap group. Going into the 909 here, I replaced the 808 with a 909. Just going to select clap on the 2 and the 4. I'm going to bring that audio level down to 12. It already is. Okay, that's better. Okay, so now we've got a snare, clap, kick, hi-hat. Let's add a bass line. I like to use Halion for my sub, like sub bass, and it's by Steinberg. I'm going to back up just for a moment to that reverb send before I go to this bass line, and I'll show you one quick thing that I did not mention on there, and that was the EQ. You may have noticed that there is an EQ with a fairly high low cut and right here, a little bit of a dip in the mids. So this was something that I actually picked up while reading about George Martin and the Beatles. They said that this was why his reverb sounded so good, was because he used to cut out the lows and the extreme highs and then dip the mids so that it didn't get too muddy. So this can really help reverb sit in the mix without clashing with too many other sounds. All right, cool. Moving on to bass. So we've got, there it is. I'll move it to the bass group. I meant to open it within the group. And then I'll go to bass. There it is, my sub bass. So sub frequencies are important when writing for electronic music. It took me a while to really be able to hear them and understand them and be able to process them because they're pretty sensitive. You don't want a whole lot of compression on them. You kind of want it to be just clean and clear. But they're really, really essential to making a mix have emphasis and effect. Give me 1 second. I just need to plug my synthesizer back in. Okay, so there we go. So that is the key of C. So that's kind of where I want to be. I'm probably going to have to tune my drums back to C later. But let's see how it sounds. It sounds pretty good. I feel like it's a little loud still. Now let's send that to the sidechain parallel compression. And I'm going to make sure that this is sending in mono, so I'm going to actually go over to the Ableton utility tool, select mono there. Let's throw that on the kick as well. that works. Last thing I think I'm going to cover right now is I'm going to show you how to use the Ableton drum to Midi tool. So for that, I'm going to go to my samples. And this is just a folder that I imported to my places using add folder. I know I have an amen break in here. It's from record mode, volume 1. So I'm going to add an audio track here. And this is not on the grid. So I'm just going to stretch it to the grid here. And then there you go, that's now quantized. So for to solo that and listen to it. Sorry again, let's turn that down. Okay, so I like it, but I don't like it. So like I like the rhythm, but I don't like the way it sounds in my track, and I don't think I'm going to be able to use it. But I want that drum beat. So what I'm going to do is convert drums to new MIDI track. And I should say record mode volume 1, cool sample packs. They're available, I believe, on Juno or Bandcamp. Yeah, great live drummer for stuff like this. In certain settings, I could totally see that working, but not for this project. So what it created was it created a little bit of a MIDI file here, which is pretty wild. One of my favorite tools in Ableton. And it also created a instrument here of drums, of different drum samples. However, I don't want to use that one myself. We can listen to it real quick and you can see what it sounds like, but that's not going to be the one I want to use. But let's listen to it. So it sounds, turn it down. It sounds like this. So cool, yeah, definitely cool. I think I can make one that sounds better using those Roland synths. So we're going to go back to Roland Cloud and we're going to open up a 606. And then I'm going to turn off the pattern here and just make sure it's just running that one pattern. And then I'll drag and drop that MIDI file over there. And I'll just delete these previous ones just to save CPU. So now let's see what this 606 sounds like. Actually, before I do that, I am going to go down here and I'm going to change the velocity to all of these so that they are at their highest, so that I don't have any velocity issues while I'm trying to program these sounds. I want everything hitting at its maximum. So here we go. just loop it. So it's not bad. I mean, it's something to work with. Definitely think it's a fair example of how you use Ableton quickly and precisely to come up with a groove. Next, I'd probably go in here and I'd just add like arpeggio on the synth, and then from there I'd probably add some pads, and then maybe add a piano line. Yeah. Start looking for samples. So that is it. That's pretty much my projects. That's how I do it. You can see over here the mix is hitting 12, so it's a little low. I'd want that between -10 and -5, and then I'd want this peaking at -0.3, but possibly dipping in the quieter points to about -5 to -6. Maybe even -7, -8. That would be a lot of dynamics. I think if you're doing like classical or more organic sounds, possibly even down to -12. But yeah, there's definitely some room to bring these levels up, to put some maybe some more compression and gain staging on this layer here, these group layers, to create some further mixing buses. But as you can see, there's very minor glitching, and I'm running on an older computer. A fair amount of VSTs here. You got my mastering chain and my mixing chain on right now. Maybe we can even turn those off to show you what they sound like and what they do to this sound. So here's without the mixing chain. Here's without the mastering chain. Sorry, so it's a little glitchy, it's a little laggy. I think it's because I've been recording videos here now for the afternoon. But yeah, I'm going to sign off on this. I hope you guys got a lot out of this series. I guess really the only other stuff I would show you are my instrument buses, which I might try to do here in a little bit. But with the track already lagging, who knows? I'm not sure if the next video will work out. So you might see me, you might not. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. My name's Sean, Shanto, or Shinobi. Remember, you can find me on SoundCloud. You can also find me on Instagram, Shinobi_AZ. Feel free to send me a message, send me a tip.